everyone. So glad you have joined us for our continuing series, Things I'll Never Do Again. This is part 3. I'm going to let you in on a secret. A secret, if believed and accepted and embraced, it is going to free you from a lot of illusions. Here's the secret, and I want you to write this down. All right, here we go. The world doesn't owe you anything. I want you to think about that. The world doesn't owe you anything. It doesn't owe me anything. Nada. Zilch. Zero. And if you accept this secret, if you accept this reality, and you begin to live out its implications, I'm telling you, everything will change. The world owes you nothing. Not happiness, not freedom, not success, not health, not fairness, not love, not security, not wealth, nothing. And the quicker you accept this reality, the better you'll be. The quicker you embrace the harsh truth that the world doesn't owe you one more day on this planet, not one more hour breathing its air, not one more second standing on its surface, the faster you are in touch with truth, and truth will set you free. Now, you know that our minds have been preoccupied with the coronavirus. I've spent time thinking through the effects it's going to have on schools and small businesses and churches. I've wondered about how we will keep you connected and served. I've thought a lot about how we're going to help you spiritually and relationally and mentally, keep you nourished during all the social distancing we are experiencing now. I've thought about small businesses and wondered how they're going to function. I've wondered about the education of our children and the safety of our medical staff. I'm sure you have spent a lot of time thinking through those things too, and no doubt it's probably caused some anxiety within you and a lot of concern. Well, I've been tempted to say, it's not fair. I mean, it's not fair for our churches. It's not fair to our kids. It's not fair to our small businesses. It's just not fair. And the other day, I was sitting in my office and I was thinking through all of the negative impact this social distancing is going to have and restaurants being closed. And I was just sitting there going, this is just not right. And then it occurred to me as I was working on this message, wait a minute, Scott, the world owes us nothing. And when you think about it, nations around our planet have been battling diseases and viruses and sicknesses and poor health care for centuries. We're just not used to it in North America. So we think that we're going through something so unusual. And we are for us, but not for hundreds of millions of other people around the globe. What the U.S. is going through right now is actually common for many people around our world. Sure, the details are different, the names are different, but the fears, insecurities, worries, sicknesses are exactly the same. What is unusual is we are in the crosshairs of a virus, and it's the unknown. And I was sitting there thinking, this is just so unfair. Why did I think it was unfair? Because at the core of my being, I mean, right at the center of who I am, I think I deserve safety. I deserve health. I deserve prosperity. I deserve protection. The world owes me something, and I'm not getting what I'm due. And I want you to hear me and hear me well. That whole line of thinking is an illusion. It is not reality. You and I are owed nothing. And the sooner we accept it, the sooner we embrace that reality, the better we'll be. And the idea that I'm owed something has been with us a long time, and it appears in a lot of subtle ways that we do not detect. In fact, we think we're owed a good marriage. We think we're owed a faithful partner, a well-paying job, a happy life, a healthy body, a safe car. We're owed medical insurance, life insurance. We're owed a comfortable life. And when one or more of those things do not happen, we want to cry out, foul. It's not fair. I just don't understand why I can't catch a break. This is so unfair. Why do I have to go through this? And our response and reaction Those things are arising from a belief at the core of our soul, a worldview that embraces we deserve better. We deserve more. We are owed these things and we're not getting them. And because we're not getting them, that's not fair. Burn this illusion, because that's all it is, an illusion. Now, if you've been with us over the last couple of weeks, then you've no doubt heard me refer to Amy Morin and her book, 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. There is a test she provides as it relates to what we're discussing today. And I want you to ask yourself, do I respond positively or negatively to these points? Just a brief test. There's 10 statements she makes, and you can evaluate yourself based on these statements. And if it's true of you, you can give yourself 1 point. In fact, here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to ask somebody else. Maybe you're there with your family. Ask your husband or your wife or one of your children to score you, and you score them. I think that'll make it quite interesting. Or maybe you're in a small group there. Ask somebody who knows you pretty well to just simply answer these questions or these statements for you, and then at the end we can add up the points and see where you range in the 10 statements we're going to give you here. Here's the first one. You think you perform better than average at most tasks like driving and interacting with other people. If that's you, then give yourself a 1. Here's the next one. You're more likely to talk your way out of problems rather than accept the consequences. Is that you? Number 3, you believe you were born to be successful. You just carry that about you. You just believe you were born to be successful. And one day, it's going to happen. It's got to, because you were born for it. Here's number 4. You think your self-worth is tied to your material wealth. Number 5, you believe you deserve to be happy. Number 6, you think you've dealt with your share of problems in this life and it's your turn to have good things happen to you. If that's you, give yourself a point, or if someone else, you're scoring someone else, if that's them, give them a point, or if it's you, they'll give you a point. Here's number 7, you enjoy talking about yourself more than you like hearing about other people. That's a big one. Number 8, you think you are smart enough to succeed without having to work hard. Number 9, you sometimes buy things you can't afford, but justify it by saying you deserve it. And the last one I'm going to give you is you consider yourself an expert in many things. Well, how did you do? Ask the person who graded you to tell you your score. In fact, I'll give you a moment to just share those scores that you came up with your partner, with your friend, or maybe you even graded yourself. How'd you do? My suspicion is many of us scored pretty high. And the higher you scored, the more you tend to think you are at the center of the universe. Things revolve around you. You deserve to have a good life. Why is that? Why do we think everything revolves, or if it doesn't, we think it should revolve around us? Here it is. We tend to confuse rights and privileges. We've either been taught or have come to believe that being happy is a right. I have the right to be happy, or I have the right to be treated fairly. Actually, you don't. This was very difficult for me to accept. It's something that I'm still working through right now in my own growth. It's something I'm working through in my own spirituality. I'm trying to go, wait a second, I ought to be happy. I deserve certain things in life. And I'm realizing I don't. If we are happy and we've been treated fairly, we're privileged. It isn't a right. It's actually something we have received. We do not have the right to get these things, and if we have them, we are a privileged group of people. Listen to me very carefully. You see, many, many years ago, our forefathers believed they had to earn happiness, and they had to earn respect, and they had to earn a prosperous life, and many of them did. And as a result of hard work And as a result of discipline, they purchased houses and they purchased farmlands and cars and clothes, and they invested and got a return on their investment. But somewhere along the line, we got the idea that happiness, prosperity, safety, respect are rights. Rights we receive rather than privileges we enjoy. And that slight turn, that slight change in worldview makes an entirely different way of looking at life, looking at people, looking at yourself. And when things don't go our way, we don't have the money, or we don't have the house, or the mortgage is too high, or our marriage falls apart, or our freedoms are taken away from us or impeded, or whatever it is we want, we think somebody's cheating us. Someone's stealing from us. Someone is stopping us from getting what it is we are entitled to. And it gets more complicated than that. Hopefully I can explain this well. How many of you like cereal? If you like cereal, just lift your hand where you are. I love cereal. I actually love cereal. I love Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles the best. So if anybody wants to buy me a box of Cocoa Pebbles or Fruity Pebbles, hey, I'm game. And one reason I love cereal so much is because when I was growing up, the only cereal we had in my house was Corn Flakes. Not Frosted Flakes. Only rich people had Frosted Flakes. We had boring, dry, tasteless Corn Flakes. And I got so sick of eating Corn Flakes, I had to put a bag of sugar in the bowl just to flavor it. And don't give me any skim milk. White water. No. Give me whole milk. Straight from the cow would even be better. And I remember going into the grocery store when I was just a kid and my mom shopping and we were getting, breakfast items and different things. And man, I was looking at all the different kinds of cereal and I was lusting over Fruity Pebbles. I was lusting over Cocoa Pebbles, Honeycomb, Lucky Charms. And out we would walk with a big old bag of Corn Flakes. So today, some 40 years later, whenever I go into the grocery store to pick up some cereal, which I don't do as much anymore, I want to get whatever kind of cereal I want, mostly Fruity Pebbles. Why? Because I want to get what I couldn't have when I was a kid. It's almost like I'm fighting for injustice in making a kid eat dry, boring, tasteless cornflakes. Now here's the deal. Somehow I began thinking I deserved good tasting cereal. And since I couldn't get good tasting cereal as a kid, that I was going to have good tasting cereal as an adult. The world owed me good tasting cereal and it didn't give it to me, so I got to somehow go get it now because of injustice. Actually, the world owes me nothing. Now, obviously, there's a little humor in the fact that I, as a 50-year-old man, go buy Fruity Pebbles as, trying to fight against the cornflake injustice of the world. And there is some humor in that, almost some silliness in that. But here's the deal. Take the cereal out. A lot of us walk around with a sense of entitlement. It might not be for cereal, but it's for a lot of other things in life. It's why some of you drive the truck you drive. You don't drive the truck because you need that particular truck. You drive the truck because you think you deserve a truck like that. You work hard and you are owed that. It's why some of us wear the clothes we wear. It's why some of us build the house that we build. It's a statement. We believe we are entitled to it. It's why we do a lot of the things we do in life. It's not about the cereal. That's just an example. But we do it in a lot of other places. We just believe we deserve it. And our sense of entitlement is so subtle. It's so subtle, we don't see it in ourselves, and we don't see it in other people. Let me give you another illustration. Let's say that we don't get the dream job we wanted. We wanted this job for a while. We filled an application out. We sent it in. Maybe we even went in for an interview, and we're so excited, and we don't get it. So we tell one of our friends, hey, they ask, how did it go? And you're like, well, I didn't get the job. And then our friends will say to us, or we'll say to them, well, something better will come along. Or if someone is going through a tough season, a very difficult season in life, and a lot of things have kind of fallen apart, and you'll hear people say to one another, you know what, you deserve something good to happen to you after all the bad you've been through. You see how subtle that is? How we communicate with one another, how we interact in our own head, our thoughts. Let me ask you, what makes you think something better will come along? Well, because justice wins out in the end, Scott, and if you didn't get this job, then something better is bound to come along. Who told you that? And why did you say you deserve something good to happen after all you've been through? Why does this person deserve something good to happen? That's not the way the world works, is it? But we've bought into it, and we believe it, and we subtly give those kind of statements and hints to other people. Are you telling me that a good job will come along simply because you didn't get the other good job? I mean, is that the way the world works? Is that the system we live inside? Do you actually believe because you had a string of bad things happen, you are bound now to have something good happen? It's almost like everybody's going to get a certain amount of bad things and a certain amount of good things, and you've exhausted the bad things, so now the good's on its way because that's just the way the world works. The world owes you something now because you've gone through so much. Is that your concept of the system of life? It's been my concept for a long time. And if I could go back and change things about myself, things that I would never do again, one of the things that I would never do again is live with the false idea, live with the illusion that the world owes me something, and wait around until the world comes and gives me what it owes me. Listen to me carefully. If you are smart or less than smart, if you are old or young, if you are wealthy or not, if you are black or white, if you are Christian or Muslim, it doesn't matter who you are, where you live, from where you've come. Listen to me carefully. You do not deserve anything good to happen to you more than anyone else. No one owes you anything. And the faster we embrace it and begin to live inside that truth, the better we'll be. All right. Let's get to the Bible. Okay, it's the only way church people will know that this is a sermon. Okay. I want us to look at a story Jesus tells. And his story is so powerful, it is so incredible, it is so packed with truth, and it is so illusion bursting. In fact, that's so many of his parables are that way. They just burst illusions. They just drop all the silliness that we embrace and think and gets to the heart of who we are and calls us out, calls us on the carpet, if you will, and says, hey, this is who you are. You think you're this, but this is who you are. And I want to get to this story because it reveals what is going on at the heart of entitlement, at the core of this sense of the world owing me something. Somehow, we begin to think we are better than other people. We are more deserving, maybe, than some other people are, that other people don't work as hard as we do, or they're not as good as we are. In fact, we even look at some people and just go, they're just downright lazy, and they certainly don't deserve, and I work hard, so I do deserve, and we just kind of carry that around. That isn't reality. That's an illusion. Here's reality, and this is what you're going to see in this story Jesus tells. Two things, real quick. Everyone is equal, and number two, everything is a gift. Everyone is equal, and everything is a gift. And if each of us could live within these two realities, undergirding us, supporting us, I'm telling you, it would change everything. Now let's go to a story that Jesus tells in Matthew 20. And And I'm not going to put all of these scriptures there in front of you. I'm going to put a few of them as we get further into the story, then you can follow on. But if you've got your phone with you, or you're following along on YouVersion, or you've got a Bible close by, just flip over to Matthew 20. And I'm reading this out of the Contemporary English Bible. So I just want you to pay, the Common English Bible. I misspoke. The Common English Bible. Now pay attention to chapter 20 of Matthew and just listen as I read this story. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. After he agreed with the workers to pay them a denarion, which is a day's wage, he sent them into his vineyard. Then he went out around 9 in the morning and saw others standing around the marketplace doing nothing. He said to them, "You also go to the vineyard, and I'll pay you whatever is right." And they went. Around noon, and then at 3 in the afternoon, he did the same thing. Around 5 in the afternoon, he went and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you just standing around here doing nothing at all?" "Nobody hired us," they replied. He responded, "You also go to the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the workers and give them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and moving on finally to the first." When those who were hired at 5 in the afternoon came, each one received a denarion, which is a day's wage. Now I want you to pay attention to how those who worked all day responded when the landowner gave them the money they agreed to receive. Verse 10. Now when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more. Now just pause. Isn't it interesting that they agreed to a particular amount of money? The landowner agreed to it. They agreed to it. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. They worked all day. He paid them exactly what he said he would pay them. But they thought they would receive more. Who told them they would receive more? Where did they get the idea they would receive more? They never agreed to more. He never agreed to pay them more. But they thought they would receive more. That's how many of us think. We just come up with these ideas that we deserve more. I deserve this house. I deserve that job. I deserve a good marriage. I deserve a good healthy body. I deserve a raise. On and on it goes. We just get in our head, we deserve more. But each of them also received a denarion. When they received it, they grumbled against the landowner. Now, why would they grumble against the landowner? He gave them exactly what he said he would give them. They worked a day, they received a day's wage. But they grumbled against the landowner. Why? Because they thought they would receive more. So your thinking and the way you process affects how you interact with people, how you see people, how you treat people. Change your thinking, you change everything. Mess up your thinking, and you mess up everything. Verse 12. Those who were hired last worked 1 hour, and they received the same pay as we did. This is what they're saying to the landowner. Those who were hired last worked 1 hour, and they received the same pay as we did, even though we had to work the whole day in the hot sun. But he replied to one of them, "Friend," and I love the fact that the landowner referred to the person as a friend. He didn't see him as an enemy. "Friend, I did you no wrong." Folks, just stop right there, okay? Just because you don't get what you think you deserve doesn't mean anybody is treating you wrongly. If you didn't get the job, you didn't get the job. If you didn't get this, you didn't get this. If you didn't get that, you didn't get that. There's probably a lot of different reasons why that's true. But it's not that somebody did you wrong. It's not that somebody's picking on you. It's not that somebody has made you their victim. And certainly there are cases when that is true. But way too many of us carry around this thinking we deserve more. And he says, "Friend, I did you no wrong. Didn't I agree to pay you a denarion, 1 day's wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I want to give this one who was hired last the same as I give you. It's my choice. I can do with my money what I want to do with my money. Don't I have the right to do what I want to do with what belongs to me? Now listen to this in verse 15. Excuse me, the last part of verse 15. Don't I have the right to do what I want to do with what belongs to me? Or are you resentful, here it is, because I'm generous? See, a lot of our resentment comes from the fact that somebody else is generous. So those, he ends it in verse 16, so those who are last will be first, and those who are first will be last. Listen to me very carefully. The real issue for those who worked the whole day in the hot sun, the problem wasn't the landowner's injustice. The problem was the landowner's generosity. Oh, if I could get this one point across, if I could somehow communicate this with such clarity that it would just go through the clouds of your thinking, go through all the layers of lies we've embraced, break down the illusions of things that we have thought were true for so long, and really see this point in this story Jesus tells, I'm telling you, it would cut away so much junk from our lives. We would see ourselves differently. We would see other people differently. We would see the system around us differently. I'm going to say that statement again. The problem wasn't the landowner's injustice. He didn't treat the guys who worked all day long and gave them 1 denarius. He didn't treat them unjustly. Okay? The problem wasn't the landowner's injustice. The problem for those guys who worked all day was the landowner's generosity. You see, it wasn't that the landowner didn't pay the first workers fairly, it's that he paid the later workers really generously. It's not that we don't have food or clothing or opportunities or excess in our lives. The problem is that other people have more. So we get upset when we look around that other people drive better vehicles than we do, or they live in better houses than we do, or they have a greater salary than we do. It's not that we're being treated unfairly. It's not that that the world is being unjust to us. It's not that God is being unjust to us or whatever it is. It's that other people have a lot more things than we do, and we cry foul. It's not that God is being unjust to us. We're just complaining that God is being generous to them. And we can't rejoice in their prosperity because we don't have as much as they do. What's interesting in that story Jesus tells is that those who were hired in the early morning, they went out to work all day. They were absolutely fine receiving 1 day's wages for 1 day's work. Everything was fine. Had they worked all day and nobody else was hired, at the end of the day, they would have received their money for their day that they worked, and they would have been fine. Until they looked around and saw other people who were more prosperous than them. And suddenly, this thought occurred to them, I'm not being treated fairly. I deserve more. Watch that going on inside of you. Pay very careful attention to that kind of thinking, because that kind of thinking is poisonous. That kind of thinking will destroy you. That kind of thinking will act like acid on the inside of you. It will destroy peace. It will destroy joy. It will destroy a sense of accomplishment, a sense of purpose. It will destroy the very foundation of honoring what God has given to us and blessing Him and worshiping Him, because we'll look around and see other people who have more, or they don't seem to work as hard as we do, and we'll get a thought in our head, we're not being treated fairly. And all of a sudden, we think we deserve more. Pay attention to these phrases that you either say or think. I deserve better. I'm not following that law because that law is dumb. I am more valuable than this. I was meant to be successful. One day, I'll get what I deserve. There is something special about me, and other people don't see it. Just be very careful with all that kind of thinking. Here's the harsh truth, all right? We carry a sense of entitlement, and we are blind to it. This one is very difficult. We think everyone sees us the same as we see ourselves. We think, no, I'm not entitled. No, I don't carry a victim mentality. No, I don't think I deserve more. Because we think everyone sees us the same way as we see ourselves. And that isn't true. And this is a real struggle for me. If you know me personally, then you know I'm not really known for smiling very much. It's not that I don't like to smile, because I do. In fact, I love to laugh. I love to tell jokes. I love for people to tell me jokes. I love to get into a conversation where I'm laughing. It's just that I don't do it very often. A lot of times I'm enjoying something and even finding something funny, but I don't express it a lot on the outside. I'm a private person. That's just who I am. It's how I'm wired. I don't say what I'm thinking until I get to know you better. Now, if I get to know you very well, I'm fine with just being transparent and open, and I'll say sometimes difficult things and funny things or whatever it is. I have a resting face that is quite uninviting. I think there's a name for it, but I can't really think of it right now. Maybe some of you can. But I assume people know I'm nice. I assume people know that I'm kind and gentle and overall loving. Not true. There is no way people would know any of those things about me if they are basing their opinions on my face and on my body language. People do not see you the way you see you. People only see what you display. I have to learn to make sure my face is aligned with my heart. I have to make sure my face is aligned with my thoughts. And sometimes I am very poor with that. Now, what does that have to do with entitlement? A lot. In fact, the same is true with entitlement. Many of you do not think of yourselves as feeling entitled, because your thoughts say, oh, no, I don't deserve. Oh, no, I don't think that I am worthy of that, or I ought to get that. But on the outside, we certainly display that kind of thinking. So pay very careful attention to how you're thinking on the inside and how those thoughts are aligned with your body language. If you start having thoughts on the inside that says, well, that's not fair, I deserve more, why not me? How long am I going to have to go through this? When is life going to take a turn for the better? And then if someone asks you, are you entitled? Do you think the world owes you something? Oh, no. No, that's not me. But yet your thoughts are betraying, or your outside betrays. You need to line all of that up, because here's reality. Here's reality. Life is not meant to be fair. No one on this planet is guaranteed fairness. No one. The idea of fairness needs to fade with childhood. It's never going to be fair. Number two, your problems aren't unique. I know we all like to think that the things we're going through is so different and so unique, and nobody's going through what I'm going through. Folks, if somehow we could spill all your problems and then listen to everybody else's problems, I think you'd be amazed at how many problems you have, other people are facing, and how many people are going through problems greater than you're going through. Number three, you have choices in how you respond to what you're going through. And how you respond makes all the difference. Number four, you aren't more deserving than anyone else. Man, that's a tough one. But nothing about you makes you better or more deserving than your neighbor. Nothing about you makes you more deserving, or that somehow, you've earned it, or you've earned it simply because you live in this country, or your skin color is a certain way, or your parents are who they are. You don't just automatically get anything in life, or you're not supposed to. For instance, as cold as this sounds, this is the truth. You don't deserve health, or safety, or a home, or children, or a husband, or a job, or a long life, or anything. If you have any of those things, it's because generosity was poured upon you. The landowner gave it to you. The landowner poured it upon you. Not because you deserved it, but because he's generous. And if you don't have one or more of those things, no one's treating you unfairly. It's called life. The fact that we live and breathe is what we were given. Everything else is generosity. Everything else the landowner poured upon you. Do you realize how that changes everything? When you start looking around and you get in your nice truck and you drive to work or you drive to wherever it is you're going and you look at it and you think, I don't deserve this truck. Sure, I work hard, but people around this world work hard every day. In fact, there are people around this world who work harder than I work. They put in more hours than I do, and they get paid a fraction of what I get paid. It isn't that I deserve this. Somehow I have been generously poured upon. I got hired at 5 o'clock in the evening and worked 1 hour and got the same amount of money that the guy who worked all day got. And it's not that he's treated unfairly. It's just that I've been given so much. Do you see how different that changes the way you look at life? So, Scott, what's the antidote to entitlement? This sense of deserving, a belief that the world owes us something. What's the antidote to that poisonous way of thinking? It's giving rather than taking. Amy Morin writes about Sarah, a beautiful example of someone who refused to fall into the trap of life owes me something. And instead, Sarah figured out how to give to the world rather than waiting for the world to give to her. Here's what Amy writes. She said, when Sarah was 24, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She underwent surgery and chemotherapy for 1.5 years before losing her battle to cancer. Throughout the course of her treatment, Sarah didn't focus on how unfair it was that she got cancer. Instead, she was too busy focusing on her mission to help other people. Sarah met other cancer patients at her treatment center, and she was horrified to learn that many of them had to drive a great distance to get treatment. Living in rural Maine meant some patients were making 5-hour round-trip drives 5 days a week for 6 weeks at a time because they couldn't afford hotel rooms. Some of them were even sleeping in their vehicles at Walmart's parking lot. She knew this wasn't a good way for anyone to fight a battle for their life. Sarah wanted to help them and initially joked that she could buy bunk beds and let them all sleep at her house, but she knew that wouldn't be a long-term solution. So she came up with the idea to create a hospitality house close to the treatment center. Sarah had already been a member of her local Rotary Club for several years. The club's motto is service above self, which is clearly something Sarah believed in. She pitched the idea to the club, and its members agreed to help her create a hospitality house. She became passionate about turning this idea into a reality, and she worked tirelessly to get it off the ground. In fact, her family says that even while she was undergoing chemotherapy, she'd often get up in the night to work on this project. Even as Sarah's health deteriorated, her attitude remained positive. She told her family, I'm not leaving the party early. I'm getting there first. Not only did her faith in God remain strong, but so did her desire to make the hospitality house a reality. Sarah passed away in December of 2011 at the age of 26. And just like she had asked them to do, her family and friends are working to make Sarah's house a reality. Within 18 months, they raised almost $1 million. Even Sarah's daughter has become involved in the fundraising. She keeps a jar with the words Sarah's House written on it, and she donates the money she earns from selling lemonade for Mama. Without a single paid employee, volunteers have worked tirelessly to turn a former furniture store into a 9-room hospitality house that won't ever turn patients away. Although most people diagnosed with a terminal illness may ask, why me? That wasn't Sarah's mentality. As her health care deteriorated to the point that she could no longer put on her own pajamas and her husband had to dress her, she wrote in her journal, I'm the luckiest woman alive. I have a very firm affirmation that I have left it all on the field of life, that is. She wrote in another journal entry, I have not held back. I do not regret the people in my life. They know what they mean to me, and I will always openly project that. Sarah certainly did give life everything she had, and it's probably one of the reasons she was able to face death with such courage, even at a young age. Shortly before she died, she revealed that one of her wishes was to inspire others to join their local civic organizations because that's what life is about. She made it clear that when people are dying, no one ever wishes that they had spent another day at the office. Instead, they had wished they had spent more time helping others. Sarah never wasted a minute feeling like the world owed her anything. Because she had cancer, she didn't deserve a long life. She didn't complain and say, this is not fair. Instead, she focused on what she could give to the world in the short life she had. She helped others without expecting to be owed anything in return. Wow. When I read that, I thought, God, help me be a person who doesn't walk around thinking the world owes me anything, but sees that if I have this that's wonderful and a home and a job and friends and family, the landowner has been generous to me, and he has poured down generosity on me. So Scott, where do we go from here? Well, I want you to pause, and I want you to prayerfully ask, and you can do it right where you are. Maybe as soon as we're finished with this time together, you can just maybe sit there with your family or a small group you have and just pray and just honestly evaluate yourself and say, do I believe the world owes me something? Do I act like I'm being treated unfairly? And be honest with yourself. Be brutally honest with yourself. Are you resentful at the amount of generosity that seems poured upon other people? Are you upset that you've worked all day for a salary and they work an hour and get the same salary, and it frustrates you and angers you and you feel that it's just not fair? Is that you? The second thing I want you to do is, once you evaluate that, is pray for contentment. And it will take a gift of God to bring this to you. It's going to take the work of God's Spirit to help you be content. Listen to what Paul the Apostle writes. He says in Philippians 4, 11, 12, and 13, I have learned to be content in any circumstance. It's a process, and you've got to learn it. It doesn't automatically come. He says, I've learned how to be content in any circumstance. I know the experience of being in need and of having more than enough. I have learned the secret. Notice that, the secret. I've learned the secret to being content. So being content for a lot of people, it's a secret, and they don't know it. I've learned the secret and how to be content in any and every circumstance. Listen to this, whether full or hungry, or whether having plenty or being poor. Here's the secret. I can endure all things through the power of the one who gives me strength. It's going to take you getting on your knees, sitting quietly in your bedroom, sitting in your truck, getting on your back porch, closing yourself in with God and saying, God, I act like a victim. God, I act like the world owes me something. In fact, God, I think you owe me something. And it's not fair. And I have this kind of thinking going on. God, I do not have contentment. And I need you to change my thinking and change my heart. I can't do it, but you can do it in me. Help me see who I am. Help me align my thoughts with my face and my body. Help me really, truly live out that I am just a person who has privileges. And I want to live gratefully, and I want to live thankfully, and I want to live a life that reflects the generosity of the landowner. This is not this verse that I can do all things. It's not really a verse for you to go out and do anything you want to do because I can do all things through Christ Jesus. That's not really what it's about at all. This verse is about learning to be content and not greedy. It's learning to have peace wherever you are and whatever it is you have, and not wanting more. Paul is saying, when you don't have a lot, be content. When you have a lot, you're content. It's all the same. In some ways, it's the opposite of the American dream. And I'm not putting that down. But we've been conditioned to think that the only way to really be happy is to have more. Get a bigger raise, get a better truck, get a better car, get a bigger house, go on more vacations. Paul is actually saying, no, that's not the secret of life. The secret of life is learning how to have the power of the one who gives you strength to give it to you when you don't have a lot. And take away that desire to have more, more, more. Instead say, God, you are generous to me. You are a generous landowner. And if you're the person who works all day and you get a certain amount, nobody's done you wrong. And if you're a person who gets a chance to work the hour at the end of the day and get the same amount, you're just privileged. And God has poured down generosity on you. That is something I want for you. Never again do I want to have the attitude the world owes me something. That is so opposite of Jesus. It is so opposite of the gospel. We live in a privileged world, and we are given so much every day. Help us, Father, to be content where we are and no longer think that we're a victim and somebody owes us something. Let's pray. Father, we bring ourselves to you, and with a spirit of confession, I just say how many times I act like a victim. I look around at other people and I think, how is it that they have so much and I don't have so much? And I get a grumbling attitude. And I want to say, that's not fair. And why is it that they don't have to work as much as I do? God, how opposite is that of your son Jesus? How opposite of that is from the Apostle Paul? How opposite am I thinking from the gospel? Father, I pray that you will root that out of Scott. Root that victim thinking I deserve more out of me. And help me live my entire life with a sense of the landowner is not only fair, he's generous. The landowner is not only just, he is abundantly graceful. And he gives me what I need, and he gives others more than they need. And let's rejoice that we have such an amazingly just and generous landowner. It will change everything for us. Speak into our lives. And Father, those who are struggling right now with anxiety and fear and worry over all the things happening throughout our nation, this message can really help. Because God, right now we think this is not fair, but yet people struggle with this around our world every day. May we identify with that pain and identify with that kind of suffering. And as we're praying for ourselves and we're praying for our family and our neighbors, God, may we pray for our world. Because there are millions of people that go through things similar to this and much worse every single day. Open our eyes and get our heads up off of ourselves and onto the millions of people around this planet. May we reflect Jesus and not ourselves. And we ask these things in the name that is above every name, the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us for part 3 of this series. I look forward to getting with you again. We're praying for you, for your family. We're praying for our world right now, that we will learn and grow and become the people God has called us to be. I love you, and take care.